Hey friends, it's Laura with Laura's Handmade Haven. Welcome or welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me today. I am one of the 2026 Benartex Social Stars, and because of that amazing honor, I am able to select different fabrics from their lines throughout the year to create projects to share with you. So the first quarter, I actually chose the Perfect Brew coffee line, and I've been sharing those ideas with you. But then in addition to that, I've also chose some fabrics from the Earth Treasures line, and I have 5 different Earth Treasure fabrics that I'm going to be creating a project with you today. So earlier in October of 2025, I shared a tutorial on how to do a self-binding baby blanket. And basically you cut the backing and the top of that blanket out of fleece. They're different size squares, and then once you get it all together, you have nice mitered corners and a cute little trim around all 4 sides of the blanket, and it's super cute and super easy. So I'm going to apply that same concept today to making some fabric napkins, because my awesome stepdaughter is a student at Mizzou here in Columbia, Missouri, and she's a fine arts major with an emphasis in ceramics, and she made these gorgeous ceramic napkin rings a couple of years ago, and she asked me if I would collaborate with her on a art show here in Columbia at the Columbia Art League. And basically we're just going to be displaying something that is a couple different artists collaborating together. And so her gorgeous ceramic napkin rings are going to be wrapped around the Earth Treasures napkins that we're creating today. And they're going to be so stunning when you see them together. So I love these fabrics, and they really play so well with those earthy tones and those ceramic napkin rings that she's created. So I just want to walk you through how I'm going to do this, give you the measurements for those fabric napkins, and then we're going to walk through creating one together today. And then by the end of the video, you will have all the information you need to create your own fabric napkins out of whatever fabric you have lying around. So let's get started. Let me talk you through all the measurements and show you the gorgeous fabrics from Benartex, and then we'll walk through making one of these amazing fabric napkins, and then you can make some of your own too. On the cutting table, we have all the supplies we need. I have 5 of the Earth Treasures fabrics here. We have sage, stone, clay, cocoa, and green. And what I have done, which I've already done all of the cutting before I started recording, I cut 2 out of each of the top 4 fabrics, and those were all cut into 16¼ inch squares, and that is the front side of my napkin like you saw up on the design board behind me. So this square was 16¼ to begin with. Now the back of all of my fabric napkins are going to be out of the sage, and this square was cut at 20¼ So that is the only 2 measurements you need for this at this point. And I have, like I said, I have cut all of the squares out. I've actually sewn up quite a few of the napkins to a point, but we're going to walk through the sewing of one of the napkins completely today. And this just gives you a really nice, it's about a 17½ inch square cloth napkin. And then before the end of the video, we're also going to go over a few simple folding techniques to make these super cute in any napkin ring that you have lying around. Now you can make these napkins with any of your favorite fabrics. These are just the ones that I selected, and they do complement the ceramic napkin rings so well. So I'm so excited about this. All right, so after you have your squares cut, and remember the backing is 20¼ the fronts are 16¼ and that's if you want your finished napkin square to be about 17½ inches. After you do that, you're going to take all of your squares over to your ironing board, and you're going to fold them in half both ways and mark the centers. And what I have done is I've marked the centers with a pin on all 4 sides of these fabrics. After your 4 sides are marked, you're going to take your larger square and you're going to open it up so it's facing right side up. And you're going to take your top fabric square and you're going to put it right side down. So then we're just going to line up these 2 marks, and we're going to stick a pin right here in the middle, and we're going to just take this on out to the outer edge and go in about an inch, inch and a half and put that pin. Now, if you want, you can put another pin down here. I've just found it hasn't really been necessary for my sewing. So I only do the first pin and the middle pin. And I do the one on the left because this is the way I'm going to be sewing. I'm going to be sewing down this side in this direction. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're just going to flip your square and you're going to do the same thing. And this is when you've just got to trust the process, okay? So you're going to take this square and it's going to fold this side over. See how that's folded? We're going to take this square, take the pin out, match it up with the other center pin on the backing fabric, stick our pin in there. And once again, take this left side out, go about an inch, inch and a half in, and stick your pin just to hold that side. Again, we're going to rotate the square, fold it over, find this pin, pin the centers, take the left side out, inch, inch and a half in, stick that pin, and now we have one final side to pin into place. Just same process for every single side. You're going to pin the center and then go about an inch, inch and a half in from the left-hand side and stick that pin too. And this is the preemptive step to when we begin sewing. So now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and sew these sides up. Now, the only thing that you need to remember, and to be quite honest with you, I might go ahead and use my marking pen to remind myself. One of these sides, you're going to want to leave an opening. So what I've been doing is leaving about a 3-inch opening. And so we're just going to put a mark here and another one about 3 inches down, and that's going to remind me to stop and start again when I'm sewing. You need to leave about a 2 to 3 inch opening on one side of your napkin or blanket if that's what you're making. Okay, at the sewing machine, if you, one thing I didn't mention that you can definitely do, if you are newer to sewing or if you just like marking things, I would go ahead from every corner on both sides of the corner, go ahead and make yourself a mark about 1/2 of an inch in from the edge because we're going to do 1/2 inch seams on all of these napkins. I just lined my little seam guide ruler up there so I would know where to start, and that's just as well, that's just as good as a way to mark that 1/2 of an inch. So we're going to do 1/2 of an inch seam on these, which I know is a lot more. It's double than what we do when we do quilting, but that is what we're going to do for this napkin just to make sure we have a really, really good edge on it and a really good seam allowance for it. It's going to make it a lot easier when we go to turn it and to sew that seam shut too. So you're just going to move your way on down the side. And again, you can mark it or you can just use your ruler to kind of let you know where 1/2 of an inch is. And at 1/2 an inch, you're going to do a back stitch. Now, if you are fortunate enough to have a sewing machine that has markings on the needle plate, you may have markings for 1/2 of an inch. And if you do, just, use those because it is so much easier than having to mark the places on your fabric or use that ruler. You'll also notice that I'm using my little magnetic seam guide over here. And it's just helping me keep that 1/2 of an inch because I am not used to sewing at 1/2 of an inch for a seam allowance. So I just want to make sure I remind myself as easily as possible. So the best solution that I had was to use that little magnetic seam guide. Make sure you take your pins out as you're moving along the side. And you're just going to sew all 4 sides. It's going to feel a little wonky just because, well, it is a little wonky right now. But the backing is bigger because it's going to fold over and give us a really pretty little border on the front of this napkin. So I'm just going to turn it to the next side and I'm going to start 1/2 of an inch in again. Just make sure that you have that backing fabric kind of out of the way so it doesn't get caught in your seam, especially there in the corner. That's probably the most likely place that you're going to get an extra doubling over of your fabric. And you will need to kind of move this end over and pinch it. Now, if you choose to, you can definitely pin that end and then you wouldn't have to worry about that quite as much. And it may be a great idea to do that. But you guys know I'm not really a pinner unless I absolutely have to be. All right, now this is our final side, and this is the side that we made those extra little marks on, and that's where we're gonna leave it open for turning. Just gonna get this corner straight along this edge. And remove this pin here. I'm just going to pull this fabric up just so it's even along the backing fabric. Now when I get to this mark though, I'm going to do a back stitch. And you can either cut your thread or just lift your needle and move it down, whichever you prefer. And again, doing a little back stitch to begin. All of 4 sides of this napkin sewing. This is not like quilting. You definitely want to do those back stitch or stay stitch at the begin and end of every stitch that you make. Okay, so that is the first step in creating our fabric napkins. We're going to go back to the cutting table because we need to do some marking. So we're going to need our sew line pencil and we're going to need a ruler. Okay, I am not going to lie to you. This is where I am, I triple and quadruple check myself because I am definitely anglly challenged. So what we have to do is make a mark, and I'm going to pin it as well to miter all 4 of these corners. And what you do is you fold 2 sides of your napkin even along each other. So you kind of have a triangle, a little sort of in a triangle. And then you're going to take your ruler and you're going to lay the 45-degree angle on the cut side, not the folded side, but the cut side. And then right here is where my seam ends. Right there is where the seam ends. The 45-degree line is right on that cut edge of my napkin. And I'm going to draw a line right here. And I'm going to do one of these and then I'm going to check myself because I'm telling you, I've done this wrong so many times that I just do not trust myself. All right, so now what I'm going to do is just open this up and see, does this make sense? So when I open this up and I let this little border come over, I can see that this pin right here, that makes sense. Sometimes if you put your 45-degree angle on the folded side instead of the cut side, your line is going to be going this way and it's not going to make sense. You're not going to have a 90-degree corner. You're going to have like a 45-degree corner, which is not right, and it's not going to come together correctly. So just make sure that that 45-degree angle is laying on the cut side of your napkins. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do the next corner. And again, we're going to take the 2 sides, we're going to pop them. So all of these, the corners and everything are folded right where how they should be. There, right here, is the end of my stitching line. So I'm going to take my 45-degree angle on my ruler. I'm going to lay that right on the end of that stitching line and make my mark. I cannot even tell you how many times I've done this wrong, even though I thought I was right. And then I go to sew it and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't look right. And then, you know, it's hopefully I would catch it before I cut it, but I definitely have cut it and then caught it and went, oh no, because then, you know, you're out of luck. You don't have enough fabric to fix it. So make sure you check it. And if you're not sure, like I showed you on that first corner, and I'll show you when we get all 4 marked too, what it should look like when you lay it out, just to be sure that you have it marked correctly. Now, when you go to stitch, I like putting these pins in there because that way it holds it in place. But when you go to stitch it, you're going to stitch right on that line you marked. So your pin doesn't necessarily have to be exactly on the line, but it does help for checking. All right, now again, I'm gonna fold these so the lines, these two cut sides, these two sides of the napkin are right along, straight on one another. I'm gonna take the 45-degree angle, not the 60, the 45. I almost had 60 there. So many ways to go wrong with this. And I'm gonna draw the line right there and stick a pin in it. Now, before I sew anything, before I cut anything, I'm just going to take this and kind of pop it a little bit and make sure all these corners, when they're folded out flat, will lay the way they should, because you should be able to see that mitered corner when you take these out, right? When I pull these out like this, this should look like a mitered corner. It should look like the inside of what our napkin is going to be like. All right, now we're gonna take it to the sewing machine and we'll stitch right on those drawn lines and we'll cut our corners, turn it out, and do our decorative top stitch. All right, like I said, I am gonna remove the pin at this point because it is folded. And I'm just gonna start and stop with a back stitch on this corner, and I'm gonna stitch right on the line that I drew. That's all there is to it on this part. And I can, since this napkin is, large enough, I guess, I can definitely go ahead and grab the next corner. So I don't need to cut my thread. You can if you want to. Do not feel like you have to chain stitch this if you don't want to. I've done several of these now. So I've kind of perfected the way to do a chain stitch on these. Now make sure when you're sewing this that you don't have any extra layers of fabric in there. You should only be sewing across the seam and one layer of your backing fabric. You shouldn't be sewing across that top fabric at all. So just make sure it doesn't get bunched down into the corner on you, which is possible if you aren't careful. All right, that's all 4 corners. And again, if you're not sure, go ahead and stretch this out and make sure that it will lay the way you think it should, right? This should look like a mitered corner. This seam should look like a mitered corner. It should not lay any other way. There's no opposites here or anything. All right, so I'm gonna clip the corners and I'm gonna go kind of at an angle at that fold and then straight out on to the cut edge. And the reason that I'm angling inside the fold is because I want to reduce the bulk of fabric in that corner, so that way when I go to turn it, it will be a nice sharp point. And I'm leaving somewhere between 1/4 and 3/8 of a seam allowance. You can definitely leave more than that, but you still want to angle that corner. Do not cut through your seam, but you can angle that corner down where the fold is at. All right, so now we're gonna find our opening over here and we're just going to turn this napkin right side out. Now, if you're thinking about making fabric napkins, a lot of the fabric napkins you buy are polyester, but polyester does not soak up spills worth a crap. So if you actually want a napkin that is more than just a decoration, 100% cotton is great. And in fact, quilting cotton is perfect for fabric napkins because it really does soak up any spills and any little mishaps at the table. It will soak it up. And now it does, although the downside of 100% cotton is that when you wash these, you are going to need to press them out every time in order to get them to look their best. But I'm not planning on using my cloth napkins every day of the week, but definitely for special occasions and definitely for display. If that is your intent too, then I don't mind pressing the napkins out every once in a while, right? Okay, so I'm using a Clover 2-point turner just inside the napkin to just poke out those corners. Be a little careful because you did snip those close. So you don't want to bust through your seam. And oh, and I didn't mention this. I did reduce my seam allowance down, or not my seam allowance. I reduced my seam length down to 2.2. The default is 2.4, but I reduced it down to 2.2. Now let's go over to the ironing board and we'll press this out and you'll see how gorgeous our little mitered corners turned out and this little border around the front fabric. Okay, so feel free to use a little starch here if you want. You do not have to, but you most definitely could. So when you're pressing your napkins out, I like to try to get my seam allowance to press either one way or the other. And really, I think it would be better if it was angled in away from this outside border, just because it would be less bulk, especially in those corners. So you just kind of want to, you can move your finger, in there and just move that little seam allowance to go press it down. So we're pressing the seam allowance towards the cocoa and away from the sage. And then as soon as my iron is heated up, we're going to give this a good little press, go right to the corner. And we are going to do a couple little top stitches around on this napkin just to hold those seam allowances in place and give a little better shape to our cloth napkin. And again, I'm just trying to use my fingers here and press that seam allowance in towards the cocoa. These lines are so pretty. Okay, so I'm just gonna have to do a little brag here on Benartex because first of all, this fabric is gorgeous. I love it. And I love the little bit of gold metallic that's in here. So at one point in my life, I found a fabric that had some gold metallic on it. And it may actually it may have been silver. It was silver or gold metallic. And it was not good because as soon as I went to move my iron over it, oh my goodness, it gave me such a big hassle because that metallic that this other company used, not Benartex, it started dragging on my iron and it started like leaving a residue on my iron. So I gotta be honest and tell you that when I saw this fabric from Benartex, I was like, I wonder, I hope that I did not get myself into something that I wish I wouldn't have, because I chose this fabric, right? And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so pretty. It's gonna make such gorgeous napkins and some other home decor items that I have coming up. And I was so excited about it. And then when it arrived and I saw all that gold metallic, I was like, oh no, what have I done? Is this going to be, awful? Am I gonna regret this forever, basically, right? And I've gotta tell you, you can see how easily my iron glides across here, and there is nothing on the bottom of my iron. This gold is not like the cheap competition that I had several years ago. It is not leaving residue or drag or any issues with my iron at all. So if you are looking for a fabric that has a marbly feel with some gold glint in it, check out the Earth Treasures line from Benartex, because this fabric is so nice, you guys. I mean, I understand that you're probably watching this and you're like, oh, well, of course you're gonna say that because you're one of the social stars this year, but I am here to tell you, if nothing else, know this and hear this. I will not lie to you. I will not do it. I tell every person that I collaborate with, if you want me to review your product, I will do that. If you want me to use your products, I would love to do that, but I will not trade my honest review for anything. So I am going to be honest with you and tell you my true opinion of anything I use. And I'm telling you, this fabric is nice. All right, so to finish up these napkins, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do two different top stitching things on these. The first one I'm gonna do is right along on this edge here, and I'm just going to top stitch right around between the sage and the cocoa, And I'm just going to use a zigzag stitch on this. You could use whatever stitch you want, and my plan is to use a different stitch on every napkin, or at least, you know, at least 4 different stitches or 2 different stitches. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do it yet, but just to use that on every, just to use some different stitches. So the only place you need to be careful is right here on this opening. And I don't know if you noticed when I was pressing, I did make sure that I folded this in really nice and straight. So I'm going to start up here on the corner with just a stay stitch. And I'm leaving this on the default setting. So the default setting for the zigzag on my Juki DX7 is 3.6 wide and 1.4 long. And that's exactly what I'm going to use. I have the clear presser foot on, and there's a little triangle in the middle of that. And I'm going to run that right on the edge of this cocoa, between the cocoa and the sage. As far as the threads that I'm using right now, I'm using kind of a golden orange color up top, and then I'm using a sage green bobbin colored thread. So on the back of this napkin, you're just going to see the sage green, and then on the top, you're going to get this like gold finish. Now on the corner, I'm going to stop with my needle in the right position, and then I'm just going to go ahead and go down the next side. This is going to lock that seam into place, and it's going to kind of give our napkin a little bit of stability on the outer edge, and it's going to make it easier to press down the road. Now, I would suggest that you pre-wash all of your fabrics before making your fabric napkins, just because that way the shrinking for fabric will already be out of the way. Now, I'm using these mostly for decoration, so I'm going to be honest and tell you I did not pre-wash my fabrics. I probably should have, but I didn't. All right, so there's the first top stitch that I'm going to do, and then I'm just going to run a straight stitch around the outer edge, but I'm going to lengthen it. My default is 2.4. I'm going to lengthen it to 3.4, and I'm going to start in one corner with a stay stitch. And I'm also going to kind of move my presser foot in. I'm going to run my presser foot. Let me show a little close up of this. My presser foot has 2 toes, one on each side, right? And this little cut right here. I'm going to run the edge of the napkin right here on that little cut. So it's going to be a little bit to the right of the needle, the outer edge of my napkin. And that's going to be kind of like my seam guide as I move around. So I'm just going to kind of move that to where I'm on that miter, and that little cut edge is right on the edge of my napkin to drop my stay stitch. And then I'll just go all the way around the outside edge of the fabric napkin. Now, if your miters are all correct, which I'm sure they are because you marked them correctly with that 45-degree angle, you'll be able to stop on the corner right when your needle is in that mitered seam. And that's going to be your turning point. So if you miss it, you can always back up a little bit if you need to. You could also use your, you can definitely use your magnetic seam guide there and put that, and that's going to help you keep that edge perfectly aligned with the right place on your presser foot. And then I'm going to stop with a stay stitch just because it doesn't overlap any threads, and that way we don't have any bulk in our seam. Just gives a really nice finishing touch to our top stitching. All right, so here is the finished edge of our fabric napkin. How cute is that, right? That is so pretty. So I have 7 more of these to finish up, and then we will, oh, and here's the back too with just that sage thread on the back. A little bit of the gold. So pretty. Oh my goodness. These are so pretty. I love them. All right, so I have the other 7 to finish up, and then we will wrap up with a reveal of all 8 in the gorgeous ceramic napkin rings. All 8 of my napkins are now finished. So we're gonna do some 4 very easy folds for our cloth napkins. The first one, we're just going to fold it into quarters just like this. And then we're going to line up the point. So the pretty edge is pointing up. We're going to take each corner and fold it into the center. And then we're just going to fold those in again. Now we're going to pick up the napkin and turn it out just like this. So these little points might flip out on you, and that's okay. It's going to be fine because we're going to cover it with a ring. Then we're going to take the ring and slide it up one end to the middle, right over where those points are at, and just spread it out. It kind of looks like a little bow tie, right? How cute. Okay, so there's one. Okay, the next one's pretty easy too. The napkin is right side down, face down, and you're just gonna turn it up. So you have a big triangle. You're gonna take this corner and go up to that middle point. Take this corner, go up to the middle point. So now you have a square that has a line down the middle. Just gonna flip it over like this. Then you're gonna flip this side kind of over at an angle, leaving this showing. And then you're just gonna take a ring and slide it about 1/3 of the way up the square. Thanks so much for joining me for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed the content you saw. Before we wrap up, I do want to say thank you to Benartex for the products they provided for this tutorial. If you liked the content you saw today, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure you do so and hit the bell for notifications. That way you know when the next video posts. Until next time, find joy in all you do, carve out some time for crafting and creating, and remember, it's always better when you make stuff up.